like a deep dark night. But follow me outside into the moonlight.
Welcome to the Wild Rose Moonlight series featuring the talent that surrounds us all. Tonight we have our host John Baylor with our very special guest Aaron Nicely. John?
Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm quite pleased to have a personal friend on our show tonight and a bandmate of mine, Mr. Aaron Nicely. We have a intern here that does quite a bit of work for us behind the scenes, Katie Smith, and she sends me some research on Aaron. She talks with him before the program starts. She, in her intro, she said, personal friend, and in parentheses, she said, former bandmate.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. Will any band survive?
Yeah, right.
This great layoff here.
Yeah, a lot of musicians having to go out and get real jobs. That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
I want to just kick it off with a little bit of your band experience, so you can talk about the Stampede String Band, but also interested in some of the other bands that you've been a part of through the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Really bought a guitar when I was 16. I saved up to buy a drum kit because my dad played the drums, and I wanted to take up the mantle there. I said, all right, take me to the store and get the drum kit, and they said, absolutely not. They allowed me to get an electric guitar with a headphone jack on the amplifier, so it wouldn't make any noise. And so that's how I got started playing guitar, and been in bands since college. Played with a few guys there. Moved to Boston and started a band there called Upstairs Ride, and moved back to Indiana. Played around in a couple of bands here before founding the Stampede String Band with John and our good friend Kyle Buck, and Davey Avenetti joined us a few years into that. And he and I started Whiskey Machine. If you're into outlaw country music, you may check that out. But yeah, it's been a long run from rock and roll.
Well, tell me a little more in particular about that Boston band, because that's a kind of a major part of your musical life journey, I think.
Yeah, got there and from college wanted to sell copiers, which I was not very good at, but wound up meeting some good folks and starting a rock band there. Got really into the Stones, which I had kind of never really liked before, and tried to get something along those lines going. So we had an office manager, a PhD candidate in biology as our bass player, and a drummer who had a food cart, an immigrant from South America. And so we had a really diverse band up there, and played one show because it's super hard to get a show in Boston. That was our first show and our last show. But it was a lot of fun, and I think there's one video of it out there if you look for Upstairs Ride, Hard Enough on YouTube.
And what are some of you just mentioned in passing some of the other bands, but what are some of the other styles of music that you've performed?
Yeah, so went hard for the rock and roll for a while, and it's been mostly that. And then once we got going with the Stampede, that was really my first experience with acoustic music and no drums. And so that really changes things from a songwriting perspective, from a band perspective, and where you can play and what you can play. So it was a complete shift mentally for me making that transition into acoustic music.
What was the motivation for making that transition?
I have to say movies. The Oh Brother, Where Art Thou had come out and introduced me to bluegrass style music, and people will cringe, certain people, if you say bluegrass music, but old time music and a little bit of bluegrass, and I had never really considered that kind of music before, but I was hooked, and so started getting into that from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and then Mumford & Sons came out and hit the scene hard, and Avett Brothers, and Ray LaMontagne put out the folk-styled album. And so from there, I really dropped back from the like hard driving rock and roll to more hard driving acoustic music. That was sort of the impetus there, but I would really have never given it a second thought if it weren't for that movie.
Yeah, so it's not something that this. I mean, do you feel like, maybe I'll phrase it this way, do you feel like that touched on something that was always there in you? Or is that like brand new? Is the appeal like the opening of a new vista?
No, it definitely it brought up, hit me at the right point in my journey towards roots rock, from Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones, that heavier rock and roll stuff, through Tom Petty. I was starting to find Bob Dylan. My musical journey has been very slow and stunted at times. I listened to Tom Petty almost exclusively for a decade. And this sort of broke me out of that and introduced me into a whole different genre of music that I really knew nothing about. And then we started working from basically nothing, just the few things that I picked up from there, and then was lucky enough to find you, Mr. Baylor, and help carry us on that journey.
A lot of the influences that you're mentioning are also very much into not quite the bluegrass and old time scene necessarily, but into various kinds of folk music. I mean, so far you mentioned the Rolling Stones and Tom Petty and Bob Dylan. So it was at the heart of some of the music you were listening to at the time.
I think so. It's the storytelling element of those songs that really drew me in. They really paint a picture, take the time to bring you into the song. It's not just like, there are certain types of songs that are just like lust songs, and that's a lot of rock and roll, and a lot of rock and roll is just breakup songs. So those are the two main veins in storytelling there. But roots music and folk music takes a different approach to telling a story, introducing characters. It's much more like a novel than a song.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really drawn to that as a creative writer. That's where I met John. For those of you who don't know our story, we met at Ball State in the creative writing program there.
Well, so get into it, since you're on the subject, a little bit of your creative writing background then.
Yeah, went through it starting really in middle school. We had a great creative writing program after school thing. I was interested and did well. And then got into college with Wabash College over in Crawfordsville, and focused on creative writing in my English degree there, and won a scholarship to write a novel for a summer from Dan Simmons, who's a science fiction writer and horror genre writer, and was really able to get into writing full-time, like get a taste of what it was like full-time there, and really wanted to continue doing that. Then I wound up in grad school for creative writing, trying to continue that journey with thinking about teaching it. Luckily, they let me like try out some teaching before I actually got too far into it, and I realized it was not going to be for me. But the creative writing part stuck around, and as my time got shorter, I went from thinking about writing novels to writing short fiction to shorter fiction to, it's like I was writing songs anyway. Like, why not put that same level of attention and focus on a song, because that's really what I've got time for.
Yeah.
So it's,
well, and an audience for it too. I think
sure.
Like the biggest hurdle for a lot of writers is the fact that nobody's listening.
Yeah.
And when you do have an audience, then there's like, okay, here's an occasion that I can rise to, and that's a big motivator for a creative person.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to get that feedback, see how you're doing. It's one of the things I like about being in a band, is you get that feedback and collaboration there too, which you don't really get as a solo creative writer. You might have an editor or something like that, or a friend or family member that you're able to share your work with, but it's supposed to be private until you publish it, so you can get people to pay you for it. And in a collaborative space like a band with songwriting, you get more of that feedback, more of that back and forth as you're shaping your work.
I'm going to ask you also about the emergent journalism project that you did, because it ties, I think in some ways it ties to the shift in your interest in music, and maybe will help lead us into the next song in some ways as well. So what was that project?
Yeah, so I don't know if you can see how far down you can see, but I've got some cowboy boots on here. And as part of my Master's of Creative Writing project, I started something called the Man in High Heels. I got these cowboy boots, and I could barely walk in them, just being lifted up off the ground another inch. It was awful. I was clumsy anyway, and putting those on was tough. You could hear me stomping down the hallways. But I started this project, Man in High Heels, just trying to experience and write about American masculinity in a time where it felt like it was slipping away or changing from a traditional way of thinking about it into newer, looser ways. And so I knew that there were a lot of things that I had not gotten to experience but had sort of known existed. And so I went and did a bunch of like labor-related things like work. So I was a cowboy for a little over a month. I worked farming tobacco. That was short-lived in Georgia. Was terrible at that. And I got to meet The Last American Man. There's a book by Elizabeth Gilbert called The Last American Man about Eustace Conway. And so I visited him on his Turtle Island Preserve. I think it's in North Carolina. And sort of experienced that a way of life that I had not gotten to experience growing up in the suburbs. Like I grew up in a more rural suburb, and we had woods and that, but nothing like I experienced there, both in just living in nature, being more a part of it every day, and then working in it too.
And there's a personal history element to this project as well, right?
Yeah, my grandfather had passed, and it just had really gotten me thinking about all of the old men in my life that had taught me lessons. And when you're young, you sort of know what's happening. Like I'm supposed to be learning something here, but it doesn't always stick. And I got to a point where I was kind of wishing some more of those lessons had stuck. And I had taken the time to spend more time with them, to learn more, to let them be a part of me more and carry them into the future. And so this was sort of a way for me to go back and write, not necessarily a wrong, but something I wished in retrospect I had done a little differently. And getting in touch with that side and meeting just some incredible people along the way that helped me continue that journey, and I'm still friends with today.
And I think from there we'll just jump into the song, which is not about your grandfather, but one of the wise women in your life. So go ahead and say a few words, and then let us hear it.
So we'll do Old Mountain, and I wrote this song after my grandma passed, and I just wasn't dealing with it really well. I had a brand new baby, but my grandma was sick, and so she couldn't see her before she passed, and just had a lot of heartache going on, and a lot of regret, as will happen when those things you wish you'd done things differently. At the same time, had some other amazing people still in my life, and so this was a song about wishing I'd learned more, but having an opportunity to keep learning, called Old Mountain. Please don't fall, old mountain, please don't fall. Of everyone I know, you're the only one still standing tall. Don't fall, old mountain, please don't fall. I've seen the stars falling out of the sky, one after the other, nearly every single night. And when I asked what happens to the light, she said, I guess the dark is just a little less bright. Oh, old mountain, please don't fall. Well, I've been fooled and I've been starved. I've seen good times and I've seen iron bars. And when I asked, is there salvation for the sins? She said, if there's an out, you know that there's an end. Please don't fall, mountain, please don't fall. Of everyone I know, you're the only one still standing tall. Don't fall, old mountain, please don't fall. Please don't fall, oh, old mountain, please don't fall. Thank you.
Thank you.
So nice to be able to sing that with you again, John.
Those
Yeah, it
harmonies.
is.
It's awesome hearing you guys play together. It's
Thank you.
so cool.
The harmony was always a big part of music for me, and I think that was maybe my important contribution to the band early on, was making sure we were doing that. And yeah, also I agree. Nice to be singing with you. We usually, when we can, we sing around one microphone. Our heads are about this far apart from each other when we're doing it, and that's the way to really get the good out of the harmony.
Those days.
I feel like when I'm way over here, I'm kind of like all the frailty in my voice is exposed, and when your voices are right next to each other, then you don't feel that way, and you can really let it rip.
I got you covered, man.
But,
It sounds great.
Yeah, some studio magic back there going on.
Don't
Yeah,
need much.
thank
Don't
you.
need much.
No, it takes a little bit. Voices are a little out of shape. Neither one of us has been singing very much lately.
Trying to knock the cobwebs off, getting ready for today, but definitely had some catching up to do.
I want to go just a little bit further back in time in our discussion and look at some of your very early experiences. I guess you better just let us know where you come from and also what are some of your very early experiences with listening to music and enjoying it, developing a love for it. And you briefly mentioned starting to play guitar, but take it away with that.
So, I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, on the northwest side, and grew up there till I went off to college. And some of my earliest memories are riding around in the car with my dad in his black Thunderbird, red cloth seats, awesome car to be riding around in as a kid with the radio blasting. And my dad was into like new rock music. It's classic rock now when the age is too bad, but the stuff that had been on the radio in the 60s and 70s, but also like the latest and greatest of the 80s and early 90s, when sort of I was a captive audience there. And we would sing along, just belt it out. I could tell the difference between all the singers, Journey and Foreigner, all the guys that you might get confused for singing way up high. But I knew all the bands and the songs, and my love of music really, I think, grew out of that special time spent together. And then I remember writing my first set of lyrics in the third grade, writing a parody song. We won't go into too much about that. And then joined the band in the fifth grade. And I was originally signed up to be a drummer. My dad was a drummer, but a friend of mine wanted to switch. She wanted to be a drummer, but she had signed up for saxophone. And so we switched, and I played saxophone. And I was the only kid big enough to carry the baritone saxophone. And so I got into the baritone saxophone, and that was my introduction to the low end of the musical scale. And so in our band, I play bass. I'm a below average guitar player, as I'm sure you're hearing. But that was my introduction to that, and played all the way through high school in the band. Got a nice introduction to the jazz band a couple of times and learned some new music there. But really the traditional stuff you play in a high school band way back then.
And what's the influence then of your dad? You've mentioned a couple of times that he was a drummer, but what impact does that have on you and your music?
Well, he also taught me to play guitar. He had learned somewhere along the line how to play a power chord and because I had an electric guitar with an overdrive button on the amplifier. That's all you needed, man.
You played
could
rock
play
and
it
roll.
as poorly as you wanted to, and it would sound okay. So I think I would blame some of my poor guitar playing on not having to play well learning on electric guitar. So if anybody out there is thinking about learning, get yourself one of these first. But yeah, he's been with me through a whole musical journey. He and I have watched our brother Art 100 times sing songs, and kept me interested in new music, and I keep him interested in new music, and we've been able to sort of merge our worlds together, and just we stay at it, always sending each other new songs, something that sounds interesting. Listen to this part, check out that part. Here's a new artist, give it a listen. So we continue that relationship today, and it's always great to get to play with him. That's one of the reasons we started playing in Whiskey Machine, doing the outlaw country, all country stuff, is because my dad would come up to Indianapolis and play those shows with us on drums. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, bringing Dad along for all the rebel music.
Yeah, he jumped right in there. He had
Yeah.
no problem. So.
And you've got 2 kids, and they're not going through the same journey as you, of course, but they're in a similar stage of life, learning what it is that they love to do.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in your bio, I bring them up just because in your short 1-paragraph bio, you mentioned supporting your kids' artistic interests. So what does that look like?
Yeah, for us, that means just making music available. We let them play it on the different devices around the house, put guitars out, drums out, things that I'm not worried about getting broken. We're lucky enough to have a few pieces like that. We got a keyboard. We're rearranging our whole house right now to make a special music space where all that can kind of come together in one area. So not like forcing them into it, not asking them to do anything, but just we have the opportunity, thankfully, to just make it available to them, and they're kind of jumping at it. And I don't know if they're watching right now; they might be, but they're both coming along in their own ways. My 9-year-old Marie was going into the 4th grade, and she started writing some songs last year, and she's got a great eye for finding that sort of just that writer's eye, where you see something different in the world and you look at it a little bit differently than maybe other people would, and putting some rhyme to that, which is really cool to see. And she's working on her singing. Not too interested in the playing yet, but I think we'll get her there.
Yeah.
And then Caroline, my little one, she maybe got perfect pitch. I don't know. We'll see. But pretty close, and it's great to hear her. She just likes to slam around on the piano, but even in just her sort of working it out, you can hear things starting to develop here, that she's finding progressions that make sense and repeating them, and it's really cool to just kind of witness from afar. I'm not going to jump in and try and push them too much. But,
Right.
That's cool.
when they ask, I will be there.
Yeah. When you see your kids creating art and music, what does that reveal to you about yourself and your own art?
A lot of times you see your life reflected in it, on the things that they pick up and notice and want to write a song about. Sometimes it shines a light that's funny. My daughter recently wrote a song about Dad can't have dairy after 9. It gives me a tummy ache. So just different things like that you see. But yeah, it just reveals that pure creative process. And it's so hard sometimes to tap into that with everything that's going on in your life. You got all this stuff in your head. And they don't have any of that yet. Some of it, the older they get, the more troubles they have, unfortunately. But it's great to see them being able to work those things out and just experiment with no judgment. Like, they're not even thinking about what anybody's going to think about it. They're just out there doing it for themselves, and it's inspiring.
And you support music for children in other ways too, the TriCounty Beard and Mustache Society.
Yep.
Go ahead and give those good people a plug.
Absolutely. So the TriCounty Beard and Mustache Society has been around several years now. They have a few good slogans, but it's basically a bunch of people with big hearts, who get together to try and bring music to kids who can't otherwise get it. So they'll do things like sponsor music lessons locally. They collected a bunch of instruments, had them refurbished, and they make them available to kids who want to play them, be it band instruments, guitars, drums, whatever. So they're taking donations of instruments, taking monetary donations, but great people and a great cause, and I'm always happy to do anything we can for those guys.
Well, I think if we're going to get another song in here, then we better do it. We're running a little short on time, so what else?
We did one mountain song, so we'll just stick with that and do
Okay,
a new
this is a
mountain
new
song.
one for me. Now, before you get into this, tell me your first lyric for this song. Just say it.
Her cool eyes, dark like autumn leaves. So my wife always complains that I haven't written a song about her beautiful eyes. Or if I do write a song that mentions eye color, it's not exactly the way she wants it. So I
No, the cup. Sorry, I'm interrupting. You're talking about your wife, but
that is part of the story.
missing the part of the line I really wanted to hear.
See, her cool eyes, dark like autumn leaves, restless wind, let them fall on me. I think is how it goes.
Okay, now this will be a new one on me. So, although I picked up my guitar, I'm not playing on it. Take it away.
So yeah, as part of all the quarantine fun, I got quarantined in Cincinnati away from my wife for a couple of weeks, and wrote this song down there. Her cool eyes, dark like autumn leaves, restless wind saw them fall on me, knocked me down just to lift me up. Much too much became not enough. Take my hand and pull me free. Search for me, I'll be waiting in the mountains for you to find me. Winter woman, made of ice and snow, you can warm my traveler's bones under cover of your white blanket. There's a fire if I can make it. Take my hand and pull me free. Search for me, I'll be waiting in the mountains for you to find me. Search for me, I'll be waiting. Search for me, I'll be waiting. Search for me, I'll be waiting in the mountains for you to find.
Nice.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to wrap it up here, but we'll be back on with Aaron at 8 o'clock. So take a short little break, get your supper, and then come on back. We got more great music and great conversation ahead. Thank you, Aaron, for joining us.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wild Rose Moonlight series. There's a lot of help to bring this together. It comes from Gibson Foundation, Gibson Insurance, Marshall County Community Foundation, Marshall County Tourism. Gotta give a special thanks to Aaron Nicely, our host John Baylor. Behind the scenes, we got George Schricker, Katie Smith, Howard Gibbs, and I'm Ryan Meir. Thank you very much.